Hey, Iowa. I stayed in Washington the past 2 weekends, away from my family, so I could fight for yours. After weeks of late night votes, working around the clock to find responsible ways to protect your taxpayer dollars and fund critical programs our neighbors in Iowa rely on, we have successfully made an agreement to keep the government operational. We cannot right the ship by letting it sink. And so now, with the government funded for the next 45 days, we can return to the urgent work of cutting wasteful spending. On top of keeping the government funded, the House passed long-term funding for approximately 70% of the federal government. This includes funding for provisions to secure our southern border, strengthen our national security, and counter communist Chinese aggression, all while cutting billions in wasteful spending. Unfortunately, the Senate didn't do their job, and these bills are not yet law. I also voted to prevent harmful cuts to programs Iowa farmers and rural communities depend on. I'm committed to finding responsible ways to cut government spending, but we absolutely cannot do it on the backs of Iowa farmers that both feed and fuel our world. I'm not going to mince words. We got into this situation because politicians more focused on their 5 minutes of fame on TV or future ambitions were getting in the way of the American people. That's why I introduced 2 bills this week to hold D.C. politicians responsible to the American people during these impasses. My People Before Politics Act will prohibit members of Congress from fundraising for their re-elect campaigns during a government shutdown. I was proud to lead this legislation solo, fighting back against the swamp and calling out the bad behavior of politicians who were willing to shut down the government and raise money for their own campaigns while America's southern border was left undefended. I also introduced the No Work, No Pay Act to fine members of Congress for an amount of equivalent to 1 day's pay for each day of a government shutdown. When we fail to fund government, federal employees who are deemed essential, including our armed forces, federal law enforcement, and border security agents, are required to work without pay. The one exception to that rule is the people who caused the shutdowns, members of Congress. That's just plain wrong, which is why I also instructed the House of Representatives to withhold my pay during the potential government shutdown. I've also championed the Pay Our Troops Act to ensure that our men and women in uniform receive their paychecks as they protect our nation. I will always play by the same rules that we're asking our American families to adhere to. Moving forward, I'm fighting in D.C. to finish our work of protecting taxpayer funds and ensuring critical programs are fully operational. I will keep you updated on our progress to make Washington, D.C. operate with some Iowa common sense. It's an honor to serve you, and I hope you have a good rest of your weekend. Thanks, Iowa.